Hey guys, sorry about that. Didn't notice you. Notice you there. Welcome to another math lesson with Mr. Walker. Sorry for being a bit distracted today. Got a lot of things going on. So you might know, in addition to being an awesome cereal chef and having some really awesome dad jokes, I'm also like a master builder. Okay, I'm really good with my hands and building stuff with power tools and all that kind of stuff. So word got out about that, and here at E-School during the summer, we're ramping up, getting ready for some renovations and stuff like that, and they asked me to help them out with some of their projects they have going around here. So I've been packing up my toolbox here, and I got all my good stuff. I got my saw going on. I got some a drill over here, and I think call this a screwdriver, I guess. So I'm packing all this stuff up, and of course, I gotta have my helmet on because safety first, right? Gotta have that construction hat, right? So I think this is a construction hat anyway. Anyway, regardless, yeah, you may have noticed that some of my tools are plastic. Unfortunately, Miss Walker took away all my real tools because I had a few mishaps, or as I like to refer to them, just learning opportunities, right? We all can grow and learn from our mistakes for sure. So, what's that? We actually have video footage of those. Do we really? All right, roll the clip. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Yeah, he's done.
So I'm a little accident prone. Not a big deal though. It doesn't mean that I can't be good at building stuff, right? But actually it's okay because Miss Walker doesn't know, but I snuck in one real tool, okay? This is a level, and like it's got a laser pointer, a little ruler down here, and actually has a measuring tape which stretches out like, I don't know, like hundreds of feet, right? And if I press this little silver button here, it like comes in like super fast. Sorry about that, everybody, but good news is the doctor said in 3-4 years you're not even going to notice the scar, so I lucked out on that one. So anyway, what does all of this have to do with our lesson for this lesson? Well, our goal for this lesson is to find the area of rectangles, right? And these rectangles are going to have whole numbers and mixed numbers and different things like that. So we're going to have to use some measurement. We're going to have to use our math skills to be able to find the area of these different rectangles, which is super convenient because what I'm going to be doing here is laying some tile for these new classrooms, kind of renovating, shaping things up a little bit. And the tile, to be able to lay it correctly, I'm going to need to be able to find the area of these rooms. So hopefully you guys can hang in there with me. We can practice some of this together, and you guys can help me find the area of these rooms that we're going to be renovating, this tile that we're going to be laying down. So for this lesson, we're going to need a few things in addition to the power tools. So I'll hang on to the power tool side of things. You guys can just worry about the supplies and stuff that you'll need. So in the module, or hopefully linked in this video somewhere, you're going to see some files, some downloads that you can have. And one of them is going to have like these squares on it, okay, with all these squares that you can cut out. So these are going to represent like our physical tiles. So we're going to actually be able to move them around and use it as a tool to help us. You're also going to have some sheets that are going to have some rooms on them, okay, like a room A, room B, room C, so on and so forth. I printed mine out on color because I want to see the contrast between the white tile and the colored room. You don't have to, but if you want to do that, that'd be super awesome to do. So get those printed out, get those squares cut out, get them ready to work, and then just have something to write on, something to write with, because of course we're going to be doing some math as well and working some things out. So once you have those things ready to go and you're ready to start building with me, go ahead and click continue and we'll keep moving. Alright guys, so I have my rectangles cut out here. As you can see, I cut them out. You want to be careful that you cut them out like along the lines as close as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer you can get, the better it will represent the actual tile that we're going to be laying in these E-School rooms, okay? So I have that, and I have my rooms that we're going to be laying the tile in, so I could, see what's going to fit, okay? So let's take a look at room A. That's the one we're going to start with, okay? And we're going to determine the area of this room. And if we remember what area is, if we can go back and, well, you know what? One of my favorite things to do is
math vocabulary.
Math vocabulary, you can't go wrong there, right? So our area is going to be the amount of space. It's going to be the amount of space that this rectangle takes up, okay? It's the two-dimensional representation of that, though. We've been talking about volume. That's like 3 dimensions, right? That's how much space an object takes up in 3 dimensions. Area is just 2 dimensions, okay? So that's what we're talking about here. And to find the area is super easy. All we have to do is take the length times the width. So area is equal to length times width. Okay, so if you want to write that down somewhere, if you need to remember that, please do so, because we're going to be referring to it a lot throughout this lesson. All right, so each one of these pieces of tile here is going to represent 1 square unit, all right? And what we're going to start with is we're going to look at room A here and see how many pieces of tile, how many square units this room takes up, okay? So let me just go ahead. I'm going to start laying these out, and you guys playing along at home, please do so as well. I'm going to go ahead and just lay these tiles in here to cover up all of room A. And again, we want to be as precise as possible, but I realize that with, everyone's printer and scissors and cutting skills all being a little bit different, it's not going to be exact, but there we go. It's a pretty good representation right there. So right now, I'm looking at my room A and how many square units of tile it's going to take for me to cover this room. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 square units of tile. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at just like one side of this rectangle for a second. If I wanted to measure one side of this rectangle, how long would I be able to say that that rectangle is on that side? Right, it's 3 units long. There's 3 units, right? Let's start up here. 1, 2, 3. 3 units long. What about the width? What's the width of this guy going to be? Right, 2 units, right? 2 units is the width up here. So if I wasn't able to count up these squares here, if I wasn't able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if I just had my length and my width to go off of, I could do that too, because now I know it's 3 times 2. 3 times 2 will give me 6. So let me go ahead and record that real quick. I'm going to make like a little makeshift chart here, and we could say that rectangle A has a length of 3 units, a width of 2 units, and an area of 6 units squared, okay? 6 units squared, that's what we're looking at here. And again, if that's all the information we had to go off of was the 3 units and the 2 units, we could still use that to figure out our area just by multiplying, because we know that formula of length times width is equal to the area. All right, so let's go ahead, let's move on now to rectangle B. So this is room B, I should say. It is a rectangle though, and when we look at these two compared to one another, what do you notice about them? Anything that jumps out at you right away about these 2 rooms here? All right, well, the difference isn't huge, but if I'm looking at these 2 rooms here, room B is definitely a little bit bigger than room A. I don't know how much bigger, but it's definitely a little bit bigger there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our square units, again, our square tiles, to figure out the dimensions or figure out the area of room B. So I know how much tile we're going to need and how much time it's going to take me to put down. So let's go ahead. You guys start playing along at home. I'll do the same here. We'll start building together and just do a little bit of brainstorming and tell me what you think we're going to get here. All right, well, I don't know if you guys had the same issue as me, but I ran into a bit of a conundrum already as far as tiling my rooms is going to go, right? I'm laying this tile here, and if I look, well, I have 3 units down this side, so that's okay. That's good with me here. But if I look across, I have 2, and then it looks like I have a half or like a fourth or something. I don't have quite a whole tile here, right? So what do we do? How can I find the area? Like before I had 3 times 2, like that was easy, right? I could do 3 times 2, that gave me the area. What about this? How am I going to know how many tiles I need in order to find the area, or in order to fill this room with tile? I need to know that area, right? So what can we do? Well, I'm going to need to figure out what fraction of another tile I need in order to fill in this gap here, okay? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this tile, and I'm going to start by folding it in half. So you guys follow along with me at home, play along with me. Take one of your tiles, we're going to fold it in half, okay? So now I have 2 halves, right? I'm good there. It's kind of hard to see on this camera, but you get the idea. So let me just go ahead and draw a line where that crease is, kind of like a dotted sort of line. Okay, so now we can see we have half. Now, if I fold it in half and then I fold it in half again, all right, fold it in half again, and when I open it back up, what's it divided into now? Right, it's divided into fourths, okay? So I'm gonna draw some more dotted lines along those creases just to make them stand out a little bit more. Perfect, okay, so now I can use this. I could do it into fourths. I could go further. I could do eighths and sixteenths and stuff like that, but I don't think we need to go that far. But now when I line up this tile here, I can go, oh, okay, so this is gonna be a fraction. So I'm going to have a whole number over here, and I'm going to have a mixed number here. I'm going to have, it looks like 2, and let me just line all this up nicely here. Looks like it's going to be 2 and a half, right? 2 and a half. If I line up those there, let me just zoom in a little bit so you guys could see that. Whoop, hold on for the ride. So it looks like it would be 2 and a half right there. 2 and a half. Just perfect. So, okay, so 2 and a half, that's great as a measurement. It's not as easy as multiplying 2 by 3, but we know how to multiply whole numbers by mixed numbers and different things like that, so we could still find the area of this. Now, of course, since we have these tiles, I could always lay these out, just keep filling this in, and go, okay, well, it's going to be 6 here, and then it's going to be a half, and a half, right? So I could use that, but that's not always going to be available to us. You know, I'm pretty savvy, I'm pretty awesome when it comes to my construction abilities, and I use these models here to help me out, but that's not always going to be an option. It's not always going to be available, so it's good to be able to know how to do the math as well, okay? So let's take a look at how this one would work out. Well, first of all, if I look on this side here, like our length, okay, we already talked about that a little bit, and we have 3 units, okay, 3 units, 3 square units right there. 1, 2, 3. Going across the top here, we're going to have 2 and a half units. Okay, 2 and a half units. So I could add that to the chart so I know what we're going to be dealing with here. And then I know if I were to take, let me just take 2 more squared units here. I'm actually just going to leave them folded, fit them right in there. Beautiful. Beautiful. And again, if I'm, you know, manipulating this a little bit and using these tools that I have available to me here, I could say, well, I have 6 whole units here. I have 3 half units over here. If I put 2 of these together, though, that gives me 1 more. So now I have 7 and a half. Okay, 7 and a half. So I know that the area of this rectangle, of this room, is going to be 7.5 units squared. So that's easy enough, being able to use the model. But how do we do that math-wise? What's that going to look like math-wise? Let me just write it over here. If I had 3 units times 2.5 units, what's going to be equal to, well, 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times a half would give me 3 halves. So I have 6 and 3 halves, which that 3 halves is an improper fraction. It's a fraction greater than 1. So if I were to convert that, I would end up with 1.5. So really I have 6 plus 1.5, which is going to be equal to 7.5, which is what we did here when we used our model, when we used our manipulatives. Let's go with that. When I used those to kind of build it out, I could show them that way. That worked out well. I could also do the math if I didn't have this available to me. And either way would work. Okay? Cool. I appreciate you guys working through this with me. Now I know in room A I'm going to need 6 square units of tile, and in room B over here I'm going to need 7.5. So room B is a little bit bigger. I'm going to put my name in to get room B because I need the space, right? All right, let's move on and take a look at another room here. I got room C here. This is like a really long, skinny kind of room here. But we could still use the same sort of method to help us find the area of it, because again, I need to know the area so I know how much tile that I need in order to cover this room. All right, so if I start laying out some tiles here in room C, let's see. I'm going to go across first. Let me get some more here. So I got 1, 2, looks like we would have 3. It's hard to do this without bandage on. Dang measuring tapes. Just don't tell Miss Walker. Prove it right again. We don't need any more of that. All right, so it looks like I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes going across, right? Or 5 units going across, I should say. And that looks good, but down here, obviously, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have some fractions of a tile. We're not going to have whole tiles. So let's see. If I were to line up my piece here, looks like it's going to be a half again, right? Just about a half. So let me just put out some halves here. So we'll have 1 half. Probably going to have to pretty much match what we got going up top here. Another half, another half. And I know my flaps are coming up a little bit, but we can still tell what's a half and what's not. Another half, and beautiful, another half down here. So using this method and using these models, using these manipulatives, I can tell that my room here, room C, is going to take up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, and then this would be, these two together would be 6, these two together would be 7 and a half. So this one's going to be 7 and a half as well. That's pretty cool. So even though the room is arranged a different way and looks totally different from room B, it actually has the same area, which is kind of cool, right? So that's the manipulative side, the model sort of method of things. So let's take a look at how this would look like mathematically, okay? So I'm going to bring up that chart again, and we're going to fill out some information about this room as soon as I can get all my tiles to lay nice and straight. That looks better, right? Okay. So let's take a look at this for a second. Move this guy over a little bit here. So we have 5 units going across the top here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is awesome. And then we have 1.5 units as like our width, right? So we have 5 going across as like a length, and we have 1.5 as our width. That's easy enough. So let's think about this for a second here. Let's go a little bit deeper with some of the math that we've been doing. If I were to kind of divide this room up with a nice straight line, if I were to divide this room up, let's think about this. Let's think about our 5 units here, and our 1 unit here, right? I'm not worried about this half a unit yet. We'll get to that next. So I could do 1 times 5 to get the area of this rectangle here, which would be 5, right? So this portion is 5. Down here, I have that 1/2, but I have it 5 times. So I could do 1/2 times 5, which would give me 5 halves, which is the same as 2.5. All right, so that's kind of what we did like before when we did just the straight up math portion of it, right? We did 5 times 1.5, because that's what our measurements were, 5 and 1.5, and we would get 5 and 5 halves, which we then turned into, which is essentially what we have up here right now, right? 5 and 5 halves, which we converted to 2.5. So now if I added those together, my 5 and my 2.5, I'm going to get 7.5, which is what I got when I added up or counted up my cubes here, or my squares here. Okay, so hopefully that's starting to like make sense, right? It's not terrible, especially if you have a model to model it out. But we could always have just drawn in the squares, right? Let me just do this. Let me get these out of the way here. Could have always just, if I had my measurements, right? I had my one and my half unit down the side here. I could have gone 5 times 1.5, or I could have divided them up into my 5 times 1 and then 5 times a half, and it's still gotten it that way, even if I didn't have the cubes, or even if I didn't have the squares to help me model things out. Okay, so here's what I'd like to see you guys do, because like I got a lot of prep work I got to do here. I got to pull up the old stuff. I got to wax and buff and do all that kind of stuff. So I could use your guys' help. If you could figure out room D and then room E, which is actually back on like the first page with the squares on it. That's room E there. If you guys could help me out by finding the area of those rooms, that would be like super helpful. That way I can get to work on some other stuff. So you guys can use the same method of either laying out your squares and counting them up, or at least using your squares to help you find the measurement, the length and the width, and filling it out on the chart, and then using the math strategy to help you out there. You can actually record your information right on the problem set as you go through. So take a look at that. So I appreciate you guys helping me out. I gotta gather up my tools. I gotta get everything set so I can get to work here, because I got a lot of tile to get cut, obviously, with those fractions working in there. So just grab my trusty screwdriver, and we're gonna get to work. So thank you guys for all your help. I appreciate it. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with, and we'll talk to you soon.